always ready, set, go, right? That's it. So this is also the sound cue. I will ring this only once when you have a minute remaining, and then I just let my phone ring, rudely play on. It's like, oh, music's playing. Okay, that means your 5 minutes are up. And we're going to start with Stephanie.
No, it's just time. In the last session, I said that I have a judge who gave me some advice. Always follow your heart, always do what's right, and don't ask yourself what if. Life is also filled with firsts. 2 months ago, I gave my first sermon at my church. This is going to be my first time that I have ever sung in public.
Whoa! Yeah.
I please ask for your indulgence, and I'll also just say I have no musical background. But this is a song that I have really liked for a long time. It's a song by Jerry Reed. Jerry Reed was, as a lot of you know, was in Smokey and the Bandit, and he played Cletus. And this is a song that he wrote in 1968. When the sun came up this morning, I took the time to watch it rise. And as the sleepy world around me woke up to greet the day, I thought how small and unimportant all my troubles seemed to be, and how lucky another day belongs to me. Today is mine, today is mine, to do with what I will. Today is mine, today is mine, to take from life that I might learn to live. Today is mine. Like all men, I curse the present that seems void of peace of mind. And when I race my thoughts beyond tomorrow and envision there more peace of mind. But when I view the day around me, I can see the fool I've been. For today is the only garden we can tend. Today is mine, today is mine, to do with what I will. Today is mine, today is mine, to take from life that I might learn to live. Today is mine.
So y'all can indulge me. Last year I had two friends that took their own lives, and I found out both of them on Facebook. So the first poem I'm going to read to you is about that. The second one is much more uplifting. It's about bummer dating. So the first one is called Death Has No Time for Vanity. Death does not wait for us to be ready. Death has no time for vanity. 2 a.m. in the drive-thru, I learned that you've died. Scroll through a digital obituary in my palm. It is not profound to speak of how social media is separating us. How else would I have known? How else would you have apologized? How else would I have become the quietest tornado? Not knowing your house held suicide down in the cellar. How could you have known I'd become a deaf ghost and beg you to become one too? How else could you become a snowbank waiting for children's hugs to cave you in? How did you do it? How did you kill yourself? It's the part no one is going to talk about, then I need to know, how did you kill yourself? Were you growing your hair out to weave a noose? Because that's what I've been doing. That could have been me. That could be me. But death has no time for vanity. Death does not wait for us to be ready. She blares her horn from the car behind me, with its back seat stacked to the ceiling with a war chest of convenience food wrappers. She is an old woman. She smokes 2 cigarettes at once. She shortchanges my cheap grief. She makes sure to know what I'm feeling is so insignificant, all of this. Shouts, just order your goddamn burger and move on. This shouldn't be that hard. We're all going to the same place. So this one's a little less of a bummer, but still a bummer. This is called Very Serious Questions and Convos on Our Second Date, and some of these have actually happened, so if they're funny. Very serious questions and convos on our second date. Cattywampus is a word people still use, right? Do you fold your pizza slices, and along with that, do you consider deep dish to be a pizza? Because I don't know if I would be able to handle that. Are you one of those people who pushes toothpaste up from the bottom of the bottle like you're giving a back rub with coconut oil? Or do you squeeze it from the neck with no thought of preserving it from being an uneven mass of wrinkles because, frankly, you have better places to be and better things to worry about than how your toothpaste bottle looks held in the drawer? Is our love a seesaw? Can you pass me my quarter-life hearing aids? I've got this bad case of toddler listening skills I'm trying to kick this week, this month, this year. I hate my lips, shaped like a fired cathedral bell. Please don't compliment them or look at them when you kiss me. You're staying the night forever, right? Do you like your eggs scrambled? Do you like your life scrambled? I spend more time retrying the same 3 shirts on every morning than actually eating anything. Is that vanity or anxiety? How would you get me to stop biting my nails, or eating toothpicks, or getting the self-deprecation that's caked to the roof of my mouth out? Do you like to dye your hair? Do you think about dying as much as I do? Can I Venmo you for this for next week? Not the therapy, the dinner.
Yay!
You, sir. Your song that you sang reminded me of an old Sanskrit poem. Let's see if I can remember it. Look to this day, for it is the very life of life. In its verities and realities lie your truth and your existence. The splendor of beauty, the wonder of growth. For today, it's just, let's see, for yesterday is just but a dream, and tomorrow but a vision, but today well lived makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of beauty. Look well, therefore, to this day. It's surprising to remember that. That's not my poem, but it just reminded me of that. Let's see, we got a couple little things. Let's start with the magic mushroom squirrel porn. Magic mushrooms compel one to notice details out of the ordinary, such as 2 squirrels mating. They have no need for privacy, just frolicking, jumping limb to limb, scattering, scurrying, furry tails positioned like a question mark, until the punctuation is complete in a hurried, rapid serial thrust. Followed by prancing from limb to limb, jumping from branch to branch, to tree, jumping a lover's game of tag. My afternoon fantasy, I was a squirrel, and I enjoyed the afternoon watching live squirrel porn. I'm sorry I had to do it. Let's see. You got something tango in you?
Sure.
She danced her first tango this last Wednesday. I danced my first tango in Austin with Teresa. Yeah. 2 tango people.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Argentine tango. Now, lately our community has an ageism problem. We've got an influx in our community of young people who don't understand that dance is for all ages, and that we're multi-generational. So I thought about it and I said, you know what, I'm going to celebrate my favorite dancers. My favorite dancers are the golden dancers, the golden age dancers. So this is called Wrinkles Are Dance Lines. I dance with golden age women. Yes. My great-grandmother, Doña Maria de la Luz, she was 103. The oldest woman I've ever held in my arms. Feeling the joy of dance. Ama's youngest dance partner was me, newborn in her arms. My greatest dances are with grandmothers. They know grace in movement, grace in expression. Great dancers know golden age ladies are the best teachers. They have danced with lovers, dance with friends, dance with uncles, dance with strangers, dance with the music. They know every note, every single musical passage. A dance with an older tanguera is a lifetime dance, where wrinkles are dance lines. The dream.
Okay.
I woke up a few days ago, and this is interesting because I was having a really odd dream, and then I woke up and I heard noise in the house, and I'm going, well, you know, my housemate, that's odd. She's a school teacher. She shouldn't be up at 5 in the morning, but she was. And this is what occurred. The dream. This morning I woke up after having a really strange and vivid dreams which shook me with horror and sadness. I dreamed that my childhood house suddenly had a tree growing through the living room floor, out through the transparent roof, but the tree trunk also had an electrical circuit breaker box attached to it. My ama asked my tío Toy to chop it down, and when he started hitting it, chop, 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 with a machete, chop, 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 the tree suddenly broke in half, breaking, breaking. Brilliant sparks fly out of the room, and they become stars. I couldn't find my beloved tío Toy, who lived with us. He just disappeared. My ama disappeared too. All that was left was half of the house, and a clear view of the stars, as if they belonged in our house. My ama and my tío Toy in real life, they passed away. Our house is now condemned and torn down by the city. Nothing is left of my childhood home but for memories, dreams, and now nightmares. I was startled when I woke up immediately, so after an hour of thinking and crying in bed, I decided to check out Facebook when I found that my housemate Deborah posted about having really strange dreams at the same time that I was having strange dreams. We talked later this morning and decided that we need a couple of dream catchers. Every August, birds are molting, losing old feathers. Perhaps August is the time for all of us to lose feathers and grow new ones to fly away from our old stories. I'm so ready for the old to end and to embrace the new.
All right. I want to talk about my asshole roommate.
I'm glad you put a word after asshole. Everybody else knows that pause. So what is
I'm trying to find the damn document. Also, yeah. And I can't get the font to increase, so.
Can I say we all had a collective relief when you
Just had it up.
Show you.
That's what she said.
Oh man, she's burning it.
I know, that's like 2 in a row. Give me another one, give me another one.
Let's hoping I can stand. Alright, come on, you. Alright, 8 reasons to have a cat. 1, you no longer need an alarm clock. Regardless of the time you went to bed, your cat, who spent all day sleeping, will pounce on you at sunrise, preferably on your bladder, and meow in your face because the bottom of the food bowl is visible. You can name it anything you want, because it has nary a fuck to give what you call it. My cat, Hissy Elliott, is also referred to as fluff ass, shit brick, stupid, and that's not for cats. I'm considering branching out to fuckhead, asshole, and butt licker. 3, speaking of butts, you will get an amateur home-based internship in proctology because the cat's rectum will be directly in your face for at least 5 minutes over the course of a day. 4, you will learn how to keep a clean home because anything on a horizontal surface will be on the floor by morning while you've been sleeping. 5, you will learn to do laundry regularly because everything is covered in cat hair. You will also learn how to fold and put the laundry away immediately after it has been cleaned because otherwise it will need to be washed again within 2 hours. 6, all that talking you did to yourself before you owned a cat now has an audience. Though the discourse is admittedly lackluster, and the cat generally sounds like Alec Jones on helium. 7, you don't have to run home to walk it twice a day because it takes a shit in a box. And you also don't have to pick up steaming hot poop in a bag in 100-degree weather because you just dump the litter in the trash. 8, lastly, the ancient Egyptians worshipped them as gods and goddesses. If you can build a pyramid and love a cat, we should all love a cat. Please adopt, bring love, receive love.
Okay, this is With Love, Big Lou. I became a storyteller, a poet, an amateur stand-up comic, and eventually a writer because of my father. When I was a young girl, Dad used to ask out loud the rhetorical, "Why don't you go to the library and read a book?" When he'd see me zoning out in front of the only television in our house, watching Happy Days or Laverne and Shirley. When I entered my teen years, I shifted to calling him Lou instead of Dad, as our relationship moved from father-daughter into father-friend to daughter-friend. He became my biggest confidant, my loudest cheerleader, and my greatest influence. I became his hero worshiper. That was easy to do, though. He had a work ethic that included a regular full-time job and 2 informal part-time jobs. So he didn't just talk about overcoming the oppression of his segregated Texas upbringing, but demonstrated how to do it 7 days a week. Lou made fatherhood look effortless, while he attempted to be the champion of 8 children. For me, he possessed a deep patience for waiting out my angst-filled, emotionally driven puberty years. I was morphing from teenager to young adult, and it was my depression-born World War II storytelling father who put aside his male chauvinist upbringing to guide me to a path of education leads to career so that I never need to financially depend on a man for my future. Simultaneously, he would emphasize the importance of holding high expectations for all male suitors, saying over the phone, "You need to raise your standards." With his blessing, I drove out of Michigan in 1989 in my 2-door sports car, packed with all of my belongings and $700 in savings. To reassure my own decisions, I faithfully called him every Saturday morning from Texas on a rotary phone, later replaced by the long, stretch-corded kitchen phone, which in time turned into a cordless phone, and finally, the wireless cell. I would share my choices in jobs or hobbies, and if he didn't hem and haw too much with uncomfortable musings, I'd even mention who I was dating at the time. When I wasn't feeling shy, I would read some of my writings over the phone, mostly poetry, while he always ended his calls with, "That's beautiful, keep writing." And then, with a small catch in his voice, "I love you." In one of my parents' visits in the early 1990s, Lou presented me with a delicate wooden heart inscribed with, "God made you my daughter, love made you my friend." And on the back he wrote, "Big Lou." From that year forward, all of his letters and cards and newspaper clippings were always signed, "With love, Big Lou." This prompted me to gather all of his mailings in chronological order and to tie a yellow ribbon around the bundle. As I did this, I hummed Kenny Rogers Through the Years, while singing the lyrics, "Through all the good and bad, I knew how much we had. I've always been so glad to be with you through the years." It had been my father who chose to listen instead of yell, who asked me questions about what I wanted out of life instead of telling me what to do with it. From the age of 14, it was Lou's unconditional love that guided me towards a path of options instead of one full of dead ends made by poor choices. When I met my late husband, Hook, someone who had also been raised by a Depression-era father, I balked at the thought of dating a man 11 years older. Lou had been 14 years older than my mother, and as much as I respected him, I'd stood witness to his suppression of her, how he'd leveraged her youth and inexperience to his advantage, deciding everything based on his older, wiser, I'll decide for both of us thinking. But Hook reminded me of the precious side of my father too, with his manner of using the older style handkerchiefs to blow his nose, the way he would change his own motor oil in his truck, how he would show up at my house with tools to install blinds I had sitting around for months, or to drill holes and hang pictures on the wall, all of it unasked. Hook even crossed his legs and held his Sunday newspaper away from his nearsighted vision so as to read clearly, just like Lou. It was Hook's kindness, though, that was the most like my father's, resulting in me taking my 53-year-old fiance home to Michigan to meet the parents. Although I never voiced my reservations, I knew that if Lou didn't engage him in conversation, Hook could never earn his approval, and I probably would have found some excuse not to marry him. Hook was, of course, the only suitor my father enjoyed talking with over coffee, while Hook made him his favorite Saturday morning breakfast, as Lou quipped, "Well, it's a good thing you cook, because my daughter doesn't seem to have taken to it." After my father passed away in 2011, I saved one of his voicemails so I could forever listen and hear that distinctive Lou cadence, deep with lulls and valleys of pitch, drawing out words with pauses in between so that it was never simply hello, but, oh, well, hello, to my first hero, my first best friend, Lou.
Thanks for opening my heart, Thom, and everyone else. But you were pointing directly at me. Just read a couple short pieces. Okay. I'll read this one. The first stone core, without splitting, travels in emptiness we all by wanting always touch. Having thought is having space, in which the deaf cobble utricle against Christi, against the percussive reveries, against the meaning to a means to the stamping of knuckles. What will when, escaping the erasure of the other, of the necessity of a self? Break arms backward to contort oneself at the opening of oneself into that duplicity of selves. Gears clacking out residual mannequin heat forms a kinetic masquerade the next self will need to escape itself. For a time the mat was dirtied by mouths, abandoning unfurnished brick. For a time we removed the base from the mountain to retrieve our broken horse, pieces. My grandmother asked, what type of brick did it rest? Her skull was the kind full of beetles, carrying ants, carrying bricks. Settled under the rapid vibration of a phoneme yelped in excess. A colony wiggling out of that one suitable memory. Conviviality mistaken for challenge. A challenge. A warning the core has gone splitting. A new exterior. One did not fathom dust as capable as us. Invented space, mouthed by the sentence splitting edge, achieved itself because so once, comma, so twice. Wow.
Poetry everywhere.
I keep losing all these little red books. Okay. A bulb is only removed when it is broken. As soon as it drips onto the desert, the blood is whisked in gale. It's what pelts the front, hallway in midwinter, The ends of an opening are an opening. I hang my hat on a change of appetite. The vastness between them, born by acknowledging each other, isn't crossable, isn't awaiting, isn't the intuition of patience, isn't experience, is the need to scream a name. If or other, you decide. One didn't anticipate the heavy plot. The calcium of a rib cage, buffeted by sand, stripped somewhat of a forethought, brought you here to say, I destroyed the house and then the ambulance came. Or was it the other way around? You decide. The end of an opening is an opening. If you keep answering to the ground you desired but didn't know, if the voice comes back to you, if you are to own it, if the word in being mouthed mutes away all taps of a heel otherwise walked, at least this cloud, at most a closed cage with no one home. The edge of skin appears seared, as if the sun fell within reach. The opening, a distance, the steady thwack of potential, the sudden absence of a pulse, the ends of an opening, opening somehow, always about to, the air reserved, just for thought, just above a whisper, pushing one into this locale, themselves, right here, across. All right, anyway, I'm working on some poems called Reasons for Corners. So it's kind of about like the absence that a space creates when you create it. And yeah, that's it. So, thanks.
Hi. Yeah. You're going to do both. Oh, okay. Oh, my goodness. I've never seen them.
So this is a poem that I wrote a few years ago, and I was driving from the middle of nowhere, Iowa, to the middle of nowhere, Iowa, and I wrote this in my car. Shiva threw the tower cart and knocked the Morphus down. Now a little girl is writhing underneath a circus clown. That white flag on the fence is just a flailing piece of trash. But there's our writhing circus clown, smoking on his hash. Then Shiva throws the tower cart and knocks the Morphus down. That little girl's become a whore. She's sucking up the town. Who cares about the flag, she shouts? The Morphus stumbled dead. Can't someone make him sober and get him drunk instead? We're stuck here in a corner. There's nowhere left to go. The little girl's become a pimp, and that circus clown's her hoe. This whole thing, it's gone to shit. There's nowhere left to run, because Shiva threw the tower cart and knocked the Morphist down. Thank you.
Ellen Braverman.
Teresa was talking about, she used the spoken word instead of poetry. So I did this. It's called That Girl from Brooklyn. Hey, just call me that girl from Brooklyn. From birth to 40, Brooklyn laid claim to me. Then I packed up and moved my family out. Living in nature for the next 30 years, I healed. My trees wrapping themselves around me, filling my spaces with their tender love. The mountains giving me morning hugs, and my poetry flourishing, transporting me to places that ease my hunger for something undefined. Born in Brooklyn, but won't die in Brooklyn. I'm a Texas gal now. I can still remember so clearly childhood in the Fort Greene projects where I spent the first 16 years of my life, molding me into a person that didn't fit right. So much so that I had to shed my skin later on in my life so I can continue on. Living in Fort Greene was hard. It became a slum when all the middle-class people moved out, leaving the poor behind. Nowhere for us to go. So we all tried to make the best of it. No broken down houses, no men loitering around, no crushed glass in the streets, just violence in the air for me to breathe in all the time, except during those in-between moments when joy would burst in for a second, give me a taste of how it was supposed to be. Just call me that girl from Brooklyn. Fort Greene taught me the art of pretending so that I could escape the violence that surrounded me day in and day out. I used it so that I wouldn't feel the poverty of mine and others. I had to hide how vulnerable I felt. I was a tough girl with a soft heart, buried so deep that it took me years to dig out. Didn't want anyone to know. Don't get near me. Don't make me angry. I can explode any minute, hurting only myself. Nothing bad could happen to me. I had a guardian angel watching over me. Just call me that girl from Brooklyn. Reading saved my life. I remember going into our library, which was within walking distance from my apartment building. No streets to cross. Didn't need anyone to help me get there. I opened the doors and saw all the books on racks across the 2 rooms. I took a deep breath and entered. This library was my escape into different worlds, taking me far, far away from my own. All my problems and fears were put aside while I read. I was untouchable. The violence that threatened to choke me was not allowed in here. I was free to be anyone and go anywhere. No money nor parental approval was needed. My library card was free. All I had to do was be able to write my name. I can still see the librarian standing behind the counter, waiting for me to approach, always with my 7 books. I was a fast reader. What I really wanted to know was how it all ended and whether my characters were safe. Just call me that girl from Brooklyn. I remember the parks. They were large and were within walking distance from Fort Greene. My mom would take us there. We would sit in the grass so close to the earth and let the quietness fill us up. Growing up, I never had a garden, no room for one, but I had my parks. I remember the days spent at the many museums in New York that were free. I would roam their halls, getting my fill of culture. New York City, so different from Brooklyn, but so important for me. Each year, for as long as I can remember, my mom somehow found the money to buy us tickets to the ballet The Nutcracker. Sitting high in the second balcony, making the performance so small, but I didn't really care. I was at the theater. There was a small stone Catholic church sitting in the midst of my project, not really belonging. It was well taken care of, no signs of aging, just being strong and solid, as if to say that change happens. I have survived and so will you. Walking away, I was able to take some of its strength with me. Just call me that girl from Brooklyn. Holidays, I love them all. Thanksgiving and that of my Uncle Cal saving me a choice piece before he would set the turkey down on the table. And oh, how about Halloween? Me and my best friend Sheila would make hobo costumes every year and go to 64 apartments, all within our building, yelling trick or treat, running up and down the stairs. No elevators for us trying to beat the other children for the pennies or candy being given out. Celebrating Hanukkah with food and games. Lots of happy noise ringing out in our home. Just call me that girl from Brooklyn. Money and me have a rather complicated relationship. Early on, I learned the importance of it. I also learned how it felt to lack it, how it felt to want something so badly and not be able to buy it. I remember having many serious silent discussions with myself about money and its role in my life now and in the future. These were my pep talks. One of my lifelong challenges has been to be happy, no matter how much money I had. I remember going shopping with my mother, thinking she was going to buy me something wrong. We were only going window shopping. She had no extra money. Today, I don't do window shopping. Just call me that girl from Brooklyn.
Eight reasons I choose to love again. Number 1, I am the water in the ocean that rises but is not afraid to crash. While I adore the wave I am currently riding, I know that I am the water that remains after the foam subsides. Therefore, I am not afraid of meeting the gritty shoreline, even if that means I must reconstruct myself time and time again as I am pulled back to sea. 2, I have learned not to toss my seed on rocky ground. I've lost patience with investing energy with no return on my commitment. And you, my dear, are rich soil ready to receive my seed. You have proven yourself humble enough to till under the pain of the past, and in that process offer the needed space and oxygen for my roots to take hold and push me back up into the sky. 3, I have composted the shards of my broken family in the name of building a tribe that is not limited to biological bloodlines. For I seek to build bonds with those devoted to forward motion and self-development for a higher cause. 4, I feel no need to change you. Your strength does not diminish my own, but instead nurtures it. Even when we disagree, the debate helps me clarify and refine my own viewpoint. We respect, honor, and hold space for the divergent paths that we have walked that ultimately brought us to join hands in the journey unfolding before us. 5, the time you came to me and looked deeply into my eyes from bended knee, catching me off guard with the power of your vulnerability. I can still see your prayer beads pouring gently over smooth muscles and golden skin as we surrender to the rawness of effort over perfection. I remember the tear that rolled quietly down your cheek as we watched the sun set gloriously over the ocean. And the night you drove me home when I had too much to drink, the way you held me protectively until I turned to you the next morning ready to make love again. It never gets old, but is always new and revolutionary. 6, being with you does not make me feel less of myself, but introduces me to more of who I am becoming and who I yearn to be. It is unveiling of my truest self. Though I'm enough as I am, I relish how I am when I am entwined with you. 7, we move to the same music. Though sometimes we may sway in seductive unison, sometimes our movements are amplified even more by the harmony created by their difference. And 8, mainly I am ready to love again because you represent the best of everyone I have loved and everyone I might ever love. Even if I see another beautiful soul walking in the world, it reminds me of you, because you are created and molded for me. You are the one who caresses the curve of my hip with the whole of me in mind.
Liablewriter.
Hello everyone. Hi. So this will be off theme, but original nonetheless. Let's see. So it's called Hi Levi. The repercussions of percussive Levi. Child, man, cousin. The results of us, 7 and 9, 13 and 15, almost 36, in the late 30s. I took the risk of asking Levi the sex question when my parents responded to my inquisitive prepubescence with nebulous metaphors and blatant subject changes. What is it? Family, sexual education, voyeuristic violation, attempted penetration, clear memories of being small, dry, shorts on, rape yet. Suppressed coming out with this for 28 29 years. Family doesn't know. Another 30 would not bother me. He must remember his discipline problems and the tragically fearful way he looked at me the last time when I was 19. Does Grandma know? Of course she does. It is part of what slowly ate away at her loving heart for me 5 years after it happened, killing her of an arrhythmia in Levi's dad's driveway while she was unloading soil for the garden.
I never had the pleasure of saying your last name.
So this is called 8 Reasons Why They're Glad That Guy is Dead. I show up at Fred's funeral early, and I see Danielle right away. I ask her, how did you know Fred? She explains, you know that limo service that he had driving people around? I own the mechanic shop where he'd take the cars. And I said, interesting. Ironic that he would drive other people around and he died in a car wreck. She answers, oh, he was lucky. I give her a quizzical look. She goes, keep me company while I smoke a cigarette outside. I don't want anyone to overhear. A lot of this isn't public knowledge. She begins, so you know, the first one was that woman that he was supposed to buy a boob job for her, but he didn't. I raise my eyebrows, give her a quizzical look. What's the big deal? She goes, well, she got the job, but he didn't pay for it. I said, oh, I see. She continues, number 2. So somehow he cheated a scriptwriter out of royalties, some kind of contract dispute. Number 3, he killed a neighbor's dog with an accidental poisoning. Let's see, number 4, that's it. He didn't pay a contractor for the remodeled pool, the deck, and the landscaping. I break in. Wasn't that featured in that magazine, you know, that one that Austin has, all the hoity people? She explains and nods her head. Oh yeah, and he didn't pay for it. Number 5, she continues. There was that property dispute with the neighbor. Remember how Rand Paul got his ass kicked a couple of years ago? Fred had the same thing with one of his neighbors. I interrupt her. Is this the same neighbor with the dog? No, she exclaims. Different guy. She rummages in her purse for another cigarette, lights it, kind of loses her train of thought, turns to me. Where was I? I said number 6. Oh yeah. Then there was that land development deal. You know, he bought tax liens against his aunt and then evicted her. Before I can react, she continues. Then there was the insider trading. He talked a buddy into paying a gambling debt in stock. Fred knew that this buddy's company was going to be buying another company, but the buddy didn't know. Fred made a killing. So as I'm taking this in, she actually pauses. What was the last one? Oh, the ex-wife. She grimaces and grins at the same time. She explains. The wife, the ex, can handle the affairs, a couple of nice pieces of jewelry, some rare black opals. She was okay with that. But she was livid when she got gonorrhea and immediately filed for divorce. Now before I can react, Danielle glances across the parking lot and actually says, ooh, I think that's the ex-wife right there. Okay, hold that thought, we'll come back to this later. And we file in for the funeral.
There are 8 people who have influenced me. For the better. Adrian Mitchell, who said most people ignore most poetry because most poetry ignores most people. John Cooper Clarke, punk poet, who said, when it comes to Margaret Thatcher and heroin, I choose heroin. And he was on heroin until Margaret Thatcher got thrown out and he came back to poetry. Kenneth Graham speaking with him, I did street poetry. Try and see a poet giving value for your time. Try and see a poet giving value for your mind. Every unknown Chanticleer, the Commodore, in the midnight coffee shops, midnight to dawn, claiming the night with unknown stars and words that will be forgotten. Every song ever forgotten, every person ever sharing them, and all the names of all the unknown ones. She was 100 and she kissed me on the lips. She remembered the poetry of Pablo Neruda, Gabriela Mistral. She spoke Nahuatl, she spoke Spanish. And we kissed her in her coffin, because that was the thing to do with those who are more living when they're dead than alive when alive. And every person who wakes us up and shakes us up out of down to sleep. Mayor Barber, he had a poet. When he went to a vow of silence, his poet was called Francis Braverman, who wrote one book, The Dreams of Wet Pavements. So I went to him in the rainforest and I said, when he was shaving, are you Mayor Barber's poet? He looked at me, yes. I said, good work, and left the rainforest. There are some people worthy of pilgrimage. I sat in Charles Dickens' chair where it says, do not sit in the chair. I went to James Joyce's tower. It wasn't there, so I pissed from the tower. I went to W.B. Yeats' tower in Connemara. No W.B. Yeats, so I pissed from that tower too. The moral only seems to stay, be alive. Be alive now, do not trust posterity or immortality. It's a lie. They will not publish you, they'll publish a ghost, a memory of you. And all the invisible ones, all the phantoms of poets that you and I have seen come tripping through our consciousness, spreading little seeds in our dreams, telling us stories that are true stories because they're imaginary stories, projected in a world that calls itself prosaic reality, when all we want is projected fantasies. Make this world more than all the people who have gone before. May all your ancestors give you the wisdom you need to get through this afternoon and go to Kick Butt Coffee Shop tonight for 3 hours of poetry, music and fun. That's why I love her, because we can just make stuff up.